Simple as that. And I always give my blessings and my thanks to the internet because it's kind of changed the way that I practice. It's allowed me to interact with thousands of people all over the world. And now, by the way, if anyone doesn't know who I am, I'm Dr. Tovah Goldfine. This is TMS Roundtable. I am streaming live from Israel, originally from Philadelphia, and across the continent and from Philadelphia is a place called Texas. And that's where we're streaming live with Michael Hodge, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to put something up about you. I love that you're transforming pelvic health. I could change it to pelvic health. I could change it to your specialty with working with men. I'm just really happy to be here with you and have you now take over. And as our audience starts to come in and listen, I mean, this will be on YouTube if anybody is not here live with us, but we'll start to see some people in this kind of virtual studio. More so, Michael, I just met you, and I want to just tell my listeners that you contacted me as a bunch of other health practitioners to answer a few questions about men's pelvic issues. And then we started to talk, and I said, I really want to interview you because it is an issue that's not talked about, and let alone understood through a mind-body lens. So I'm really happy to have you speak, first of all, about you and how you got into this field. I'd love to know everything, all the details to share, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Tovah, for having me here on this live stream. The internet is an amazing invention. We're very blessed to have such widespread open communication.
Yeah.
And the reason why I contacted you and other TMS experts is because I have this special project called the TMS Dream Team. And this is coming out on our YouTube channel relatively soon. I wanted to bring TMS, which is tension myositis syndrome, which also you could call it mind body syndrome or psychophysiologic disorders. These are issues in our body that are created by the brain, but really, why is the brain creating it? That's kind of confusing for a lot of people. And it's also somewhat of a new perspective in the pelvic health community, as odd as that may seem. But people talk about mind body. Some are even talking about the biopsychosocial model of pain. But there's still some missing components. And I wanted to bring some experts in different areas that have chiropractic background, or a neurologist, or a spine surgeon, or family practitioner, psychologist, different specialties and different experiences to shed light for the men who are dealing with pelvic pain, urinary issues, sexual dysfunction. It's very little talked about, even in the mind body TMS community. So that's what we're doing here. And, we're going to have our own conversation today, but that's what brought us together. And I'm really grateful to have had a lot of TMS experts raise their hand and say, yes, they do want to help. Because, and we talked about this right before we went live, but this conversation we're having today is for men and women, by the way. Everything's going to apply for both men and women. You might wonder, like, why do you only work with men then? Well, it's the path that I've been given. It's clearly the way that I can serve the most deeply at the moment. Men feel most comfortable usually with another man, since they're talking about very private, intimate parts of their body. Also, being able to communicate with someone who's literally been there themselves, because I have. So I'm a RLE, I'm a real life experiencer. I've gone through these things, and then I've also worked now as a practitioner and understanding why it happened, how to overcome it, what's the best approach.
So you're living your life like a normal guy, and something happened.
What I thought was being a normal guy. So that's interesting, right?
What is a normal guy?
So I thought it was normal to be very focused on success and achievement and being responsible for my family and putting everything on my shoulders. I can take care of everyone and do everything that I need to do, and I will make a great impact in the world. That was my perspective earlier in my life. It's actually still my perspective, but in a different way. And I now know that I make an impact when I don't put pressure on myself, because being is enough. And being, whenever you are not concerned about any other fear or worry or factor from the past or the future, is extremely powerful and impactful,
Right.
which we'll
So
probably
I
get
ask
into later
you
on.
like a good, devil's advocate. So what does being have to do with pain?
Yeah. Yeah. So being is just the state of presence. It is the state in which you're not trying to make something go away, or
Mhm.
you're not trying to get something so that you'll be okay.
Was that
So,
happening to you before you had pelvic pain?
oh, definitely. So
So
before I
share
had
with us
pelvic pain,
how old were you and what was going on in your life? Give us a little details.
absolutely. So it started happening in late 2012. I was 22 at the time. And what was going on? I was running a business. I was a martial arts instructor at the time, but I also had a fraught relationship to a degree, for sure, with my wife at the time. I was had some fear and some concern about the future. Um, there were things going on where I was pushing myself and trying to figure it out, trying to figure it out. Things weren't working well financially sometimes. The business was challenging. I was walking around on eggshells at home. We also had a 2-year-old daughter at the time. And it was just a storm. A lot of things were combining together. And when you mix that with someone who's very future focused, I thought the future would be my savior.
Right,
So if I just read more self-help books,
right.
if I just learn more about these approaches and I go all in, that person who's like, let me take a cold shower, let me wake up at 4 a.m., let me read a book every day, etc. Right? It's like if I just
Mhm.
maximize myself, I will be very successful. That was actually sort of the approach that was creating the pain and initially, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you didn't, yet we weren't in touch with any feelings around that or fear, anger, or, obviously there was like doubt in your life, but we don't need to even go there. Obviously you were under a lot of stress and you were maybe the perfectionist personality that we talk about a lot, or it's never enough, I can do more, or not really knowing yourself. And then what happened?
Yeah, there was a lack of emotional awareness. Definitely point that out. So I what people will always talk about the day. They'll be like, there's that day. I was riding my bike for 4 hours and then I had this pain in my pelvic floor because they remember it. It's like that's when all this started. And I also have that in my situation. I had sex after ejaculating. It felt like my testicle flipped. It felt like it flipped in my scrotum and it was very
Wow.
uncomfortable. I looked it up on the internet. I was like, but it didn't seem like a torsion, which can be very dangerous because it wasn't extreme pain, but it felt very uncomfortable and just wasn't right.
Right.
So that led me to going to see my doctor the next day or something. And then he
Is
was
this
like,
after a bike ride or just after
oh,
intimacy?
just after intimacy.
Okay, it wasn't
I was
okay.
just pointing out the fact that for a
Right,
lot of
but
guys, they'll
something
be like,
happened. So
yeah,
you had intimacy with your wife, and there was some sensation in your testicles, and you went to check it out.
yeah, I did.
Okay.
So my general physician was like, there's nothing wrong here. I mean, I can't tell anything with your testicle. It doesn't seem odd. And I was like, okay. It still felt weird for a couple of days. So I went to a
You never had
urologist.
this feeling before. This was a new feeling.
Definitely a new feeling. Yeah, never had felt this before. Went to a urologist. He was also like, "You're 22. You shouldn't have any issues. You seem to be okay." He was like, "Just to be sure, we'll do a urine sample, a blood test." We did a couple of things, and he was like, "You seem to be fine, but I'm going to put you on some antibiotics just in case you have
Antibiotic.
prostatitis."
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
did they suspect some inflammation?
Actually, no, I believe he thought it was epididymitis since it was in the testicle. Yeah, that would
Okay.
have been it. Um, so there was that, and then it started to morph more into a tightness and a pain that didn't
Yeah.
it wasn't acute, it didn't go away. So it was here for a little bit and it was mild, but then it started to get really bad like 4 or 5 months later, to where it went from like a lower level problem to like a level 6, 7, 8 type pain a lot of days in my perineum. And from
Right.
there, it was a 5 year long bout of some ups and downs that I went through, and a wide variety of. It's very similar to a lot of the stories that guys tell me. It's
So wait a
crazy
minute.
how.
So you didn't get really answers. The pain was persistent. The pain was persistent, like you kept having the pain in your testicles and it didn't go away.
It moved to my perineum more so after that.
Right,
But yeah, it didn't
right.
go away.
I want to explain the perineum, exactly where it is. It's also, it's around, it's because it's also around the muscles.
Definitely, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
the perineum is like right in between the base of the scrotum and the anus.
got it.
So
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
some
Very
people refer
sensitive
to it as the
area.
taint. Yeah.
Very sensitive area. So you kept having pain and not getting relief.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Western medicine wasn't finding anything wrong with me.
And
You
this
know,
went on for 5 years.
throughout the whole
Wow.
situation, it was a
It's
5-year situation.
quite
So
intense.
to bring it into a shorter story, I went down the allopathic model originally because I'm like, there must be something wrong with my body. 3 different urologists, ultrasound, blood work,
Wow.
antibiotics, Flomax, like different prescriptions,
Wow.
a lot of that stuff. And then I was like, okay, I've got to figure out how to heal myself. I'm going to do natural approaches. Like, there's got to be a way out of this. And I also worked with other practitioners like acupuncturist, went to chiropractic. I massage therapies. There was like a curandero, which is this like Mexican traditional healer who did some things for me, like a wide variety of things. Tried
Did you
herbs
get
and
any
started.
relief from any of it?
I got relief sometimes, right? So, for example, I remember there would be really bad days, and like there was this one curandero, which means healer essentially in Spanish, and my wife's mom knew of him, and it was super intense. He massaged my perineum with a ton of power. I remember this guy. He only had one arm, one hand. His other hand, he didn't have another hand. He
Yeah.
used one hand for everything, and he it was extremely painful.
Yeah.
I was just like, if it's helping me, I'm just giving it. It's like
Right,
let go and
right.
let God. Like it's just this is what needs to happen. And then afterwards, I remember like I peed for longer than I normally do, and I
Yeah.
felt some relief. I was like, that's great. And like day later, it kind of started to come back, come back, come back. So I would have things that would be what I would call therapeutically assistive,
Sure. Sure.
but they weren't really fixing it. So even like doing stretches, changing my diet here and there, they
So,
were.
Michael, what were you thinking? You're thinking, I am living my life. I've had intimacy with my wife before. Why this time? What happened? 5 years later, like, are you thinking at all anything about like what I sure that this feels physical, this feels physiological, something is wrong, but nothing happened. So why were you thinking maybe your body attacked itself? Like what was going on maybe in your head? And maybe you were thinking, this is physical and I'm going to find out what it is.
Yeah, well, I was like, there has to be a cause. And so I read some books and then I was looking online, of course, as anyone would. And I started to learn more about pelvic floor tension, body alignment, posture. And I was like,
Okay.
I
Okay.
did start working more at a desk. Like I used to be more active walking around all the time. And I like was sitting more in the months leading up to it. So my mind was like, okay, maybe it's
Okay.
because I've been sitting more.
Sure.
Or maybe it's because of I was looking for some sort of structural reasoning behind it.
Sure.
And that's kind of a direction I would go. And then I would also ask big questions. I'm like, why is this happening in my life in general? I had a more spiritual, higher perspective on life. So I'm like, what's wrong? Like, what do I need to change? And I would only I was still looking at more surface level things initially. But then I was like, I'm going to purify myself, purify all of my thoughts, everything that I eat. I'm going to purify the way I live my life. Absolutely no negativity in any way was my goal. So that was kind of the
Yeah.
next phase I went through.
It's during the 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. It was a deep spiritual crucible for me is the way I would describe it.
Wow.
You really get brought to your knees by this sort of chronic pain. Honestly, I almost have forgotten how bad it was, right? Because it was really, really challenging. But I'm so grateful to be able to stand up right now and not be in pain
You
to
found the gift. You weren't a
everything.
victim. So, but meantime, you're a victim. It's 5 years. You're getting some temporary relief. What's going on? What brought you to the Sarno work or to understand the mind body connection, that it was not new age, that it was real science?
Definitely. So I'll explain it that in my 5-year period, I didn't learn about Sarner's work specifically during that 5 years, although I definitely learned a lot about the mind body connection, which
Uh-huh.
it's clearly described by other teachers in
Of
different
course.
ways.
Of course.
Um, But
Many
part
people
of it,
came to, go ahead.
absolutely. But so to bring it together, I mean, there was more of a letting go and a letting go and a letting go. That's what this is usually always about. I had to let go more of these ideas about how life should be, how it will be. I had to be okay and relax and release into the present moment more and more and more. Of course, I did mechanical things like I did stretching. I changed my diet in different ways. I also was visiting a natural practitioner.
Listen, there's nothing wrong. I just want to say to
Mhm.
the audience, there's nothing wrong. To me, it's not just mind or body. At some point, I think the thoughts trump everything, but the thoughts are about your relationship with the food. The thoughts are about your relationship with your muscles. It's also a relationship, and we're going to get relief from doing something good for ourselves, self-care. We're going to get relief from breathing and stretching because we're the blood and oxygen is being sucked from our brain for other reasons. So I'm really about, a more many shades of gray and not black or white. It's not just mind or body. It is both. And that's what you're saying.
Mhm.
Like you were feeling like it's sad because some people don't get relief from anything. And then we're like,
Yep.
wait a minute, then it's deeper. There might be some childhood trauma stuff that's blocking the nervous system, but I'm all about mind and body. And you're saying you were getting relief, you were getting something, but you knew there was some deeper cause continue going
For
on.
sure. I will point out the biggest thing that helped me because I was getting better, let's say 60, 70, 80% better because people with this personality type use numbers like this a lot, which is kind of a dangerous thing anyway. But the thing that really shifted me out of this was letting go of needing to be 100% better.
So how would you
Because
describe your personality so you can put it out there? So basically you have the personality and you learned about yourself. And how would you describe yourself?
so I can describe myself now and back then. It's different. Personality traits are not fixed. I would say there are authentic aspects of your energy profile, of who you are meant to be at the greatest level of your truth, that are more or less fixed. But the other personality traits that most people experience that do end up developing psychophysiologic disorders are coping mechanisms. They're not really the pure, authentic aspect of you. So, in the past, the personality traits that I would get into a lot that I actually thought was who I am would be an achiever, would be very responsible, hyper responsible, very conscientious, very quiet and shy and reserved. But also having this draw to wanting to be out front. So it was a weird psychological conflict I had internally. I had fear of confrontation and being able to speak up for myself. Very meek, I would say. And yeah, putting pressure on myself was huge. Putting pressure
And
on
it sounds
myself.
like what you're describing is like very opposite characteristics. And it's almost like what maybe you found was the balance between meek and like the balance between extrovert and introvert, which is what we all want to be introverted at times, and we all want to be able to express ourselves and extroverted. And so I think maybe what you found was balance, and that created well-being.
I have found I was forced to change, is the way I would describe it. Forced to change. It's either continue with this pain and this path or change.
Wow.
And it's just like that, continue, commit suicide or change, It's like, what do you want? So
So
I was just
5 years
like, I'm
are
going to
going
let go of
on,
these things
you're letting go, you're getting some relief, and then you started to delve into some mind body. Then what happened? I'm just making a timeline here.
for sure.
What
Yeah. I
happened?
mean, so after I would say I finally let go of needing to be 100% better. I was like, today is okay. I'm just going to let go and enjoy the day. And paradoxically, that's really how it started to dissipate. And people will always say the same thing. They'll be like, I kind of forgot that I had pelvic pain. It's like it's been 3 or 4 days that I've had symptoms. This is
So your
crazy.
sensitivity went way down. You were maybe aware of it, but you weren't reacting to it.
That was part of it, absolutely. And then it starts to just go away and away. Now, this is what led me to TMS and the mind body syndrome specific work, even though I had already studied a lot of other mind body teachers. But learning that, so if I want to go into the future, some after the 5 years, and in the past, some. Let's go into the past. So, whenever I was a kid, I had some unexplained headaches. I had some urinary issues. These were challenging things. Like I went to a neurologist. I was like the sick kid kind of at times when I was
Wow.
a kid. Out of my siblings, I have two sisters and a brother. They didn't really have issues like this, but I did. And there wasn't a medically explained reason why almost ever. And
Wow.
then even before I had pelvic pain, when I was like 19, 20, 21, I had pretty bad headaches every day, almost every day for
Wow.
years. Had some relief for some months, and then the pelvic pain started. Now, after the pelvic floor issues went away, I was doing pretty well, but then also I started to have some digestive issues, some food sensitivity fears. I had some other headache issues, and I'm like, what is going on? How is this still here? That's really what brought me to this work, because I'm like, wow, I really thought I beat that pelvic pain, and I did, in the sense that I let go of those specific symptoms to that extremity.
Yeah.
But now I see how it all is
Uh-huh.
connected, and I still had more work. And of course, we're all
Yeah.
still on an evolutionary path, but I'm like, wow, now that I went deeper into the emotional release and discovery and
So
things that have
I want
helped
to
even
just
more so.
clarify. So what happened when you had that enormous inflammation and pain in your testicle? Did you think it was driven by some fight or flight mechanism, some protective mechanism, and inflammatory response because you were in an unhappy time in your marriage at the time, or because of work, because of personality? So like connect the, because then your body was protecting you and putting you into fight or flight. So you were living in fight or flight. Like that's how I want to frame it.
Yeah,
If you can
my
just,
body was taking care of me. My body was like, look, I'm going to put you out of service, out of commission a little bit, so that you can
wow.
go within and look at what's really going on inside of yourself, because you're not listening. Just like you'll see people who work crazy hours, 60, 70 hours a week. They're like workaholics. They're like stressed out all the time. They have Thanksgiving break, or they have some holiday, and they get sick. They have a virus for like 3 or 4 days. Why is this?
Yeah.
Because their body's like, you need to sit down, stop
Yeah.
doing things. I
Right.
need to make sure you still live beyond the age of 40. The body is very protective, and it's the
Wow.
intelligence of the subconscious mind that will
Beautiful.
take care of us.
So, what was the main deep feeling that was causing your brain to want to protect you?
Well, I was needing
Fear,
to,
anger,
I was need,
sadness, guilt.
okay, emotionally, it wasn't, that's a great question. What was the emotion? It would be a fear based, well, everything can
Yeah.
fall into the bucket of love or fear anyway. But it was definitely more based in fear,
Yeah.
meaning that there was like a fear that the future's not going to be okay unless I
Mhm.
perform and I show up in a certain way.
Wow. Right.
I'm not going to be okay and
Yeah.
loved or seen or accepted and,
Wow.
applauded if I'm not a certain level of performance as a person.
Wow. And Michael,
And
can I interrupt you, which I do really well, and ask you, why do you think? I mean, these are the questions I think I'd want to know if I was in the audience. But and anybody out there, please ask any questions. Please, we're here to talk with you as well. This is a round table. So I just want to put this little note up about asking questions. But
for
Michael,
sure,
I
yeah.
want to ask you, why would it reflect itself in your most sensitive sexual organ? Why would it
That's a
sit
great
there?
question. There are a few different ways I can answer this. Some of it could be theoretical, because science is just catching up to mysticism anyway. That's all we ever do with science. We try to catch up to what the mystics already knew.
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
the mystics and mysticism already knew these things. For me, let's say my body system, my mind body organism knew that if I had issues in my pelvic floor, I'm quite sexually driven. Like I have a lot of sexual energy and I enjoy this part of my expression, even though back then it was actually very repressed. It's significantly different now. But that'll really get your attention. If I was to just hurt my elbow or my ankle, like, it'll get better in a few weeks. It's fine. So a very sensitive, important part, and this is what happens to the men that I work with as well. That's a part of your body that you really care about, that will really get your attention, and that you
Wow.
can't deny every day. Because you sit, you stand, you pee, you poop, you have sex. Like, you've got a lot of stuff that happens with the pelvic floor. So there's that. Now there's another side of it that if we look at yogic science, or even if we look at like modern, even modern sciences are now talking about, like Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. We have the energy centers of the body, also known as the chakras, that have been studied and known for thousands of years. So this would be the root chakra, Muladhara. This is the first energy center, that nerve is the nerve plexus. And this nerve plexus is like a miniature brain that governs this part of your body. Now,
Wow.
why would I have something take place in that chakra or that energy center? That's more related to survival, to connectedness to the earth, to just having what you need. Also, it's related to fear. Okay. So if you're in fear about just surviving and about your basic structures of life, you could have an imbalance there. Now, a lot of people also have imbalances in the second chakra, the sacral chakra, which is that next nerve plexus, which shows up in the second energy center in the lower abdominal, lower back. I see a lot of people who happen to have digestive issues and lower back issues and pelvic floor issues, just like I had some digestive things too and pelvic floor issues. That's related to relationships, connection with others, pleasure, things like that. I was really bad at having fun. I was bad at experiencing pleasure because my life was about productivity. My
Wow.
life was about maximizing the impact of what I did. My life was not about sitting down and just enjoying like a sunset. My life was not about deep connected relationships. So I had
Wow.
big imbalances in my sacral and root chakras.
Incredible explanation. And I just pray that people who come from a medical model can just receive that and see that this is not against medicine. We're not saying medicine is wrong. We're saying that these are the kind of problems that can heal through understanding this philosophy, which is so rooted in science and the art of the body. I mean, it is Eastern, but if medicine is helping you with your pelvic floor, please take the medicine. I'm not against that, but if we're about getting to the cause of the problem and you're not getting relief out there, then please just look at this. It may sound new age, but it is absolutely based in science, because even though you talk about the chakras, it's so based in science. And I'm studying now the law of attraction with Joe Dispenza and another neuroscientist. And the law of attraction is about your thoughts, and your thoughts sit in your unconscious, and your unconscious is 95% of the way that you're thinking. Like, I don't want to get into that whole thing now because it's a little bit my MO, but the thoughts do matter. And you're talking about how the thoughts turn into a chemical reaction in our brain, and that's the cycle. I mean,
That's exactly right. The thoughts lead to an emotion, which is a chemical reaction, which leads to a physiological change. Dr. Joe Dispenza's work is one of my favorites. I've read all of his books multiple times. I've been to 4 of his retreats. I'm very deep into his work,
yeah,
and it's highly informative. We're on the cutting edge of pelvic, urinary, and sexual health because of the fact that we're embracing that which the biomedical model has not understood or utilized, because the biomedical model clearly is not doing a very good job at overcoming and helping people to find a curative approach, not just a management approach to these
yeah. We're
issues.
not
I'm
talking
only
about
interested in a curative approach, not
yeah,
a management.
yeah, and we're not talking about injury to that area, which also can heal. God forbid you have a bullet,
Yep.
somebody, God forbid, gets raped. That can heal. We're talking about healing at the cause, at the root. And I'm a believer on the record, along with Dr. David Hanscom and other doctors, that all autoimmune symptoms, cancer, MS, neurological symptoms, they can all respond to understanding the cause and the imbalance in the immune system and the neurological system. So I'm about like healing any symptom in this way, and I've seen it done. And I'm not surprised that male pelvic issues are being healed this way. And I want to shift the conversation a little bit, because we want to also address that this area, I mean, every area of the body is a sensitive area, but why, why would there be, God forbid, cancer in the scrotum or cancer in the testicles, or, and I meet people who heal from this. It's actually, I meet people who heal from cancer, testicular cancer all the time. It's not, doesn't seem to be a really serious, I mean, it can be, but it is a place of our emotion. That's what I want to get to, and then I'm going to be quiet. How can it not be connected to our emotions. We are run by the amygdala, which is where the seat of the emotions sit. And that's where chronic pain sits too. It's processed in the same place as fear and anger and sadness. So, and I'm just learning about this the last few years of my 40 years. I wasn't into neuroplasticity, and now I'm learning all about this, and so so much more for me to learn, but it shows how you're explaining now how we can change our thoughts, our perception, our language, and heal a physical, physiological symptom. Talk more about that, how we can heal that, and why you've jumped into transforming men's pelvic health.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if I could help someone to overcome this in months, for example, or maybe even a year instead of several years, that's amazing. It's an honor that I've been able to serve in any way. There are so many people that are experiencing malpractice, if I even will use that word, just due to ignorance. There are so many people that don't really understand psychophysiologic disorders. The biomedical model is extremely well trained in the accident, the injury, the infectious disease model. And that's because if you look in history, that was the primary issue. Infectious diseases that were wiping out populations, accidents that would take place, injuries, military excursions. This is what most people needed help with medically. So now we live in first world countries, a lot of us who are potentially listening to this, even those who are in less wealthy countries. Life is a lot easier regarding Maslow's hierarchy of needs now, which has allowed us to evolve and become more conscious and more aware and higher level creators and develop more complex artistic societies. But also what's taking place now is we're in more of a mental emotional model of health. So it's like that next level. What happens is that whenever we make an advancement as a society, we now also have side effects and how to deal with that. So like as an example, this is kind of weird because it hasn't happened yet, but in the future, AI is going to be much more prominent. Robotics, these things are going to be a part of society. Like, oh my gosh, it solved all these problems. It drives our cars for us and it takes care of all these things. It's amazing. And people are also going to be disillusioned by AI. They're going to get overwhelmed and overconnected to virtual reality and to things that aren't real. And that's going to create new disorders that aren't even named yet. It's going to create new mental, emotional, psychological problems. I'm just pointing out how as we go through changes, there are new issues for us to address. And that's the model that you and I are working in, the psychophysiologic side. And so that's why I'm also very intrigued as to why all this happens. I look at multiple levels of causality. Also, most people only look at one level. So there's a book called The Kabbalion, which is an incredible book, thousands of years old, and it teaches the Hermetic principles. One of the Hermetic principles, which are essentially the laws of all of reality, if you want to call them that, is the law of cause and effect. Every cause has an effect. Every effect has a cause. But most people just look with their five senses. They're like, it's because I've been sitting down for lots of months and I used to work standing up. And that's why I have pelvic floor issues now. They're looking at that allopathic model. There's something wrong with my pelvic floor. Therefore, something had to have been related to that region of my body to create it. Oh, I've been masturbating excessively, or I've been doing these edging practices, or there's something happening. I had potentially an STD. So that's one thing that most people look at. That's just one level of causation. We go to what we're doing is looking at the next level. How have you been feeling emotionally? Do you have a psychological? Some people won't even be looking at the fact that they have this fraught relationship with their father. They hate their father. They have anger. They don't want to talk to him. They're like, nah, I just don't talk to him anymore. But they have not let that go yet. And they have pelvic floor issues. They're like, no, it's because I've been riding my bike. Well, no, everything's connected. Yeah. Everything is connected. There is nothing that's disconnected. So we need to look at the emotions. We need to look at what thoughts that you think. And then we don't have to go here today, but there's also beyond that. There's beyond even this three-dimensional level of reality. Quantum physicists, emerging scientists are now seeing that everything is connected in the quantum field. And like you're talking about the law of attraction,
Yeah.
everything is energy, everything is consciousness. What if there are other levels of causation that you can't even see with your five senses
Right.
that are related to why you're experiencing this issue right now? That's also relevant.
Right. So let's bring it back down to reality, because there are people that I want to send this conversation to. I mean, there are so many women suffering. I mean, I can't even, I go into those pages and I haven't had pelvic pain, but I so want to educate and inspire. And we've had a number of women on the show who've healed pelvic issues, sometimes horrible, painful sexual issues, and I can't even, all sorts of things. And they've come by the whole TMS method, and they're in recovery. So there's no question in my mind that a man also, but you're right, like a man having it. So I mean, I meet people that, they got criticized or judged for masturbating as a little boy, and they're living as an adult still with the guilt. So we haven't even covered that issue about, God forbid somebody get raped, date rape, and all this is going to cause the. So there's lots of reasons why the pelvis will present the pain. The question is,
Exactly.
Michael, how do we get people to look at this mind body issue and like, how can people just, why aren't they thinking, well, nothing happened to me, why do I have pain there? Or even if people have, like this woman I met has had failed surgery for anal fissures, and she's got enormous chronic pain, and I know it can heal from this, because it's also, anal fissures are also issues there. I mean, it's, again, what do you meet that cannot be healed by this? Let's just first say, first of all, I believe everything can be healed this way. And even if there's some physical tumor, God forbid, structural, this mind-body approach can help you deal with it. Let's just put that on the record. To tell us more about how you help people. What are the methods that you can help, so people can walk away today, and feel like they walked away with something in their pocket? Because these things, they don't need me or you. I mean, we help our clients, but people can heal on their own with their thoughts, with their law of attraction, with their beliefs, with their understanding themselves, self-reflection, which you don't buy self-reflection in the store. It's something you learn, you build a muscle. So tell us more about how you help heal people, because that's what people are going to want to hear today.
Absolutely. And just since you said that, what my mission in life is actually to remind people that they can heal themselves.
I love it.
That's really what I do. But this is the path that we use in Transform Men's Pelvic Health, which is related. It's the same for men or women, but this is our path that you could do with us through one of our programs, or you could do on your own. Step one is realize. So realize that this is mind-body syndrome. This is TMS. This is brain-created pain or dysfunction. This is important.
Or neuroplastic, or
neuroplastic pain, neural circuit pain. Realize that. So how do you do that? Well, of course, you have to inform yourself. There are lots of videos. There are books. John Sarno's books. You've got Dr. Howard Schubiner, Unlearn Your Pain, lots of things. But you'll go through an assessment ultimately, too. You'll rule out structural issues, and then you'll rule in a psychophysiologic disorder, and you're like, okay, this is literally TMS that I'm dealing with. So when you know that, that's actually really liberating, because now you're not afraid to sit down.
right.
Now
There's
you're not
hope.
afraid
There's
to
hope.
pee. You're like, there's no damage being done, even if it hurts. That's step one. That's information. You need to inform yourself about what this really is. Or it might be structural, and that's okay too. The point is, inform yourself. Step two would be reprocess. So we know now it's mind-body syndrome. This is something that your brain is creating. And reprocess is perceiving and experiencing the symptoms in a different way. So whenever you have pain as you're sitting down,
Changing your glasses, looking through a lens, say that in a different way. So say it again.
That's right. Yeah. You're going to change your perception of pain.
Wow.
So before you thought that pain was a problem. Now you realize pain is a gift and a reminder that something still is beneath the surface to be let go of. But in the moment, you're like, I'm hurting really bad. So what do? We do use somatic tracking. We like the pain reprocessing therapy approach. So we guide people, and you can do this yourself, whether it be through a book or learning it, to when you're feeling that pain or that symptom. By the way, it could just be urinary urgency or frequency. It might not even be pain. Instead of getting into those F's of like being fearful and frustrated and trying to fix it and focus on it like you typically always do, you stop getting into fear. You're like, you know what? This is mind-body syndrome. I'm actually safe. I'm
There's no
okay.
threat.
I'm just going to sit here and observe. Oh, that's really tight. That's super tight. Why is it so tight down there? Huh. We're just going to take some deep breaths. I'm not trying to fix it in the moment. I'm just observing it with objectivity. You become non-reactive.
Become
That
curious.
non-reaction.
Be
It is a
curious.
curiosity. The curiosity, the non-reaction, takes the wind from underneath the wings of the pain. And it actually does end up changing neural pathways over time. So that's the reprocessing part, is we're starting to change the way we experience our symptoms and not be afraid of them anymore and give ourselves a nice rise. Now, along this whole journey, the 4 steps I'm about to give you, use calming practices. So like in our program, we give them to you. We give you movement routines that are based in yoga and physical therapy. They feel really good for your body. We give you trigger point releases. We give you intrarectal massage. We give you things to do. It's like, they literally do help you feel better. They're therapeutic, but they're not addressing the root cause. So use these things if you need to. Go get a massage done if it feels good. Do these things, right? That helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then so we move on down this path that we have. And step 3 is release. This is where you let go. You discover and you let go of any emotions that have been repressed and held within. It's about emotional awareness, expression, and the transmutation, which is the release of them. We help you with that in our program. You can do that with a TMS informed therapist. You can do it on your own through journaling. There's lots of possible ways.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're starting to pay attention to, okay, my past, my present, my future. I have people do what's called an emotional timeline. Don't give me the list of this day my pelvic floor hurt, and then 10 days later I rode my bike. You looking at the mechanical structural causes. Remember, step 1 was realize we're far beyond that now. We need to look at the emotional timeline. So we look at the emotional timeline. What happened as a child? Oh, it was okay, but I was bullied. How did that make you feel emotionally? It made me like feel ashamed. Okay. What about now? Well, life seems to be all right. Well, I do feel kind of small though. Like I don't even have a voice in my relationship with my spouse. Okay. How does that make you feel emotionally? Yeah. What about the future? Well, I'm working really hard so that I could, get a promotion. How do you think you're going to feel emotionally when that happens? Oh, I'm going to feel like I'm a success. I'm going to feel happy. Well, maybe that's because it's a moving target. You think that that's going to fix it for you. So we look at the past, present, and the future and discover what needs to move through you. Stuck emotions make you sick. They're literally energy in motion that didn't get to fully complete passing through you. So you have to allow that emotion to come up. Now, can you just press a button? No, we haven't figured that out yet. We can't just press a button like, right now, please, all repressed emotions come up. I want them all gone. What you can do is create space and an environment in which it will happen. So like, let's say on a Sunday morning or something, you have space and you're like, I'm just going to do a breath work and I'm going to sit outside and do nothing for a few hours. And then I'm going to write down how I feel, or I'm going to write down every morning in a journal. Like make the space for the emotional reflection and release. And you might have a powerful moment. You might have like a breath work. You might have something like a Reiki session. You might have a plant medicine journey. Like there are things that could take place that will be big needle movers, and you'll cry, you'll feel, you'll let it through you. It'll come up with pain because it was stored with pain. You pushed it away into the subconscious because you couldn't handle it. And that's okay. We're human beings. We deal with difficult things, but it's got to come through you. It will hurt, but then it'll release and the energy will be gone and your body will actually respond very favorably.
Wow. So let me ask you, there are people who will respond to 1, 2, 3, and 4 of your methods, which are phenomenal and foul-proof, really, really can work. But there are a lot of people who are not going to get better because they don't believe in themselves, because they're so not in touch with their feelings, because the fear pain cycle is so great. So talk a little bit about that, because lots of people I want people to feel that everyone can heal. It just may take time. Alan Gordon's like, trust the process. I think it's important for us to not give one more new method. Oh, well, this is what's going to work. It's more like keep doing it, keep repeating, repetition. That's what the brain needs. It needs a new pathway. And you've built such a strong pathway that we can't, we have to build another one equal or greater, and the old one will pop up. Oh, there you go. Oh, there's that fear. Well, okay, come fear, come, let's go together. Let's walk together hand in hand. Like, how do you deal with these people who are so sensitive and so beautifully deep people? And sometimes there is a great trauma, but we're not our trauma. It's just the experience of it that we have to heal. And Dispenza is about like, listen, just there's a trauma, move on. I mean, he's not really addressing the trauma. He's going for what's ahead.
That's right.
And for some people, it's like, just look ahead. We don't need to go back there. We don't need to process. We don't need to, but we do need to visualize, manifest, magnify, and just believe that we're worth it. So then we're back to self-worth. We're back to self-care. We're back to self-belief. We're back to, you're not a victim. How do you work with people who are that?
It's a big question. And I just want to add my fourth part of the path, and then I'll answer it. No, and by the way, this isn't a methodology or framework. It's like, this is the thing that works. It's just my greatest level of understanding shared with everyone. That's literally all it is.
That's all I want.
And so the step forward that we have in our path is reprogram. This is more of like the Dispenza side of, hey, who do you want to be? What type of life are you creating? You can step into that now. And that's reprogramming epigenetically. We're actually creating a body through a new mind, etc. And we're doing some meditations and really embodying that new version of you. You have to, if you're at point A right now and you want to be at point B in your life, you're like, I want to be someone who's confident. I want to be loving. I want to be compassionate. Currently, I have no self-esteem, currently, etc. I'm not very loving. It's conditional. You do have to be who you want to be already at point B. And that way you already become that. So you have to be that person now. So we do that more in the reprogramming stage. And so yes, the point is, that's the direct, and yeah, I love Dispenza's approach, but I realize that people need to actually let go of the junk first. They need to discover what they've been holding within. That's why the emotional awareness and release part comes before reprogramming. And it's really important that it's in that order from my understanding. Yeah. But for some, they might resonate with, let me just go straight for it. But that's also sometimes trying to add helium to a balloon that's tied to the ground. You need to cut the tether, and then the balloon's going to go up. So you're like, what about people who are in so much fear? And this fear pain cycle is so severe that this all sounds nice. You're like, that sounds great, Michael. It really sounds like you figured it out. That's good for you, but I'm in so much pain. I'm so scared this will never change. Well, you can choose to see that this is a possibility. So listen, surround yourself with success stories, surround yourself with what is possible. Do you want to surround yourself with positivity and possibility, or negativity and constriction? Ultimately, you get to make a choice. So put yourself in a place. And this is my answer to people who I work with that have depression. They're experiencing a very depressive state. Make a simple, small step. Even if it's just, I'm going to go out once this week around other people, but consciously choose the people you spend time with. It's not, I'm going to go out and hang out with my friends that get drunk. It's been a while. No. Is there a yoga class? Is there like a positive group? Go on Meetup. Is there something I can go to? People who are overcoming chronic pain, or I don't know, something. Just one, you don't even have to talk. Just show up in the room. If you put yourself in a resonant field of people who are more in touch with their hearts, that have more clear minds, it's going to help lift you up. So if you can be lifted up some and be assisted, and you're like, I have no one around me. Okay. Do what you can to surround yourself with positivity that will open your heart. The more you open your heart, the deeper you can feel all of your emotions. So it could be a simple thing like gratitude for today, or doing one kind thing for someone else today.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. belief and hope are chemical. So, of course, writing gratitude and journaling is not easy for some people, but it is so effective. And sometimes you don't see the benefit right away. But, like trust the process. I mean, I recommend everyone to see the movie Pain Brain, because it really is clear about trusting the process. And I wanted to ask you also about what kind of clients, like why this is what I wanted to ask. Why are we struggling to feel our emotions, to know ourselves? Why is it so difficult? Why is it strange? Why does it feel completely out of our comfort zone? What happened along the way to us?
Yeah. Well, it has to do with, you could say, nature and nurture potentially. My belief is ultimately that there's a nature in which you are experiencing and this energy profile of this human being you're in right now. That is a part of who you are. There's also this nurture, familial, societal, cultural, religious, a lot of different belief systems that impressed upon you a certain way of being. So, especially for men, um, for males in this time period, and also most parts of the world, it's not really celebrated and appreciated for you to be overly emotional. It's celebrated that you're very logical, that you're very decisive, that you're very warrioristic and powerful. So because of this, this obviously can apply to men and women. I'm just speaking, it has been for men more so harder for them to experience their emotions because of this. And it hasn't been something that's encouraged at all. A lot of people also grew up, what men or women, in an emotionless type of household, a household in which it's just not something that you do. Whenever you start to cry, it's like, what are you doing? Crying? Like, who are you? You're a baby. Like, you just need to get up and do this. You're fine. You're not starving right now, whatever. Whatever it is that you were told growing up, and even now, even in your current life. The point is, there are these impressions that come upon us that do shift us and mold us into being a certain way. I know people who are very emotionally in touch with themselves, and they had parents that were more emotionally in touch with themselves. And they also, it's again kind of some nature and nurture. Most of the guys that I work with had more of a similarity to me. They're very logical. They're very like achievement, very oriented. They're very responsible, very focused. It's like, I don't really know. I'm not that in touch with my emotions. And that can lead to dealing with long-term chronic pain because the emotions are a huge factor in it.
How do we show ourselves love? How do we show ourselves compassion? Because compassion is such an important vehicle of healing. And it's not just sugary sweet, it's chemical. To be compassionate and to be loving and to be patient. And I asked her, how do we learn? How do we give ourselves love? How do we take care of ourselves like we take care of another, which is another whole broadcast of why we are so good to others and not ourselves. Why is it so hard to be good to ourselves? Why don't we take care of ourselves first? And then, so she said two things. I mean, how do we treat a baby? How do we treat a little puppy? We're compassionate, we're loving, we're patient. And a lot of us don't have that relationship with ourselves. And once we learn that, they're flying, they're healing. It's unbelievable. It's another whole aspect of this work that you were saying indirectly the same thing. And I think I'm not surprised. I mean, for men who it's societal that they're not allowed to feel. That's a very big point when we come to terms with men and pain, and men and fathers and the relationship with their father relationship. So you're hitting really some important points about that, Michael.
Yeah, very well said. Self-compassion, self-love is a huge, huge part of this. That's very nebulous and hard for people to comprehend initially. And when you know, though, and you start to recognize when I have a full cup first, I can then it'll overflow, it'll pour into others. It truly is that way. I mean, really needing to prioritize this will force you to have to say no to others. It'll teach you to actually prioritize. I really, I need to, my time to meditate, to do yoga, to do these things are really important to me. And telling family, friends, your boss, not being afraid, because it's related to fear. It's like, if I say that, my wife might get really mad or my boss might fire me. If you let go of the fear and you stand in your power and you're like, I love myself so much that I'm going to do this. I also know when I love myself so much, I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to be able to help everyone else more too.
Yeah.
That is how it is.
Yeah. Good
And
point.
it's a process of just little things, little things over time.
Very,
and
very
one final point I'll make on this is a lot of the guys I work with, they're very high achievers. They want to do great things in the world. They have beautiful hearts. Like they seriously are doing good things. They care about others. And they think I have to be hard on myself. I have to be highly critical and judgmental, or I'm not going to. That's how I was the valedictorian of my class. That's how I got into this university. I was, if I made a mistake, I psychoanalyzed. I looked at it like, what happened? Why did I make a mistake? They think that that's the only way they'll continue to be a high performer. It's an interesting paradox, because if you let go of that, you're like, I love myself even if I make a mistake. I'm going to be more present. It's okay if I'm not this. It's okay if I'm not there. The people who do this end up being even more impactful than ever before while they're actually enjoying life and having fun. You get your cake and you eat it too, which is the way my life is now, which is why I want other people to feel like this.
Right. Well, pain in people's life stops them to bring balance. I mean, so that's where I know people want to throw the computer and never listen to the show again. But that's where, when we're ready to find the gift in pain, we're ready to understand trauma, when we're ready to make our parents responsible, but no blame, to put things in perspective, when we understand why the body says no, because we keep saying yes. And I think that I live in a world of people who relate to that. That's my world. You're living in a world too, but we're still a very small percentage of the people that walk away with, hey. But now we're seeing, even on the sports, we're like seeing it all over. Like, yeah, that sports guy is, made lots of mistakes, and look at him now. That sports guy, is taking care of his parents. So we're seeing these stories, like in between the news that's mostly negative, we're seeing an incredibly positive and loving and feeling. And I think it's all about love. When it comes down to it, we love that. We want those stories. We want to understand the trials and tribulations of the world. So I think we're feeling loving, sensitive people in general. That's what we're built. That's God. That's what I call God, or basically being grateful for just breath. And I think we lose it and we get away from it. And if the pain needs to bring you back to it, you're not a victim. It's there for a reason. And, I love ending. I mean, it's been an hour, and there are some people in the audience. If anyone has any question, David had some questions about some resources, and I've not seen, David, your name on the show. So welcome to our weekly broadcast. But if anyone else wants to ask Michael any questions, or me, if not, I've been advertising Michael's. I want to also put on, Michael, let's talk a little bit about, you have a site called Transform Men's Pelvic Health. Yeah. Very beautiful website. Talk a little bit about your work and how people can find you if they need you. And that, do you work with women? Do you work with women?
I don't currently work with women in Transform Men's Pelvic Health. because of the anatomical aspects, and then also just the
Sure.
ability for all men to feel safe in the
Sure.
community.
Very important.
But
Very important.
yeah, so I work with men. If you want to go through our program, we have a program called Overcome Pelvic and Urinary Issues. We also
Wow.
have one called Vigor Sexual Strength. These are programs that have all the tools, everything laid out for you that you can go through it week by week. The
Wow.
meditations, the movement routines,
Amazing.
the lessons, the growth work, the journaling, everything's in there. It's laid out. And you also get coaching support from myself. So I'm in there to support you, answer your questions.
Right.
We have a one-on-one assessment call currently that you get to do. And I just want to make sure you understand you're in the right place and that you understand why this is happening in your life. And then you move forward from there. And we have really good success rate within our
Wow.
program, which I'm very proud of. We collect data on every single person who comes through our program
Amazing.
at multiple levels. So if you want to be
Amazing.
a part of it, that's how I can serve. I just want you to get better, whether it be working with me, working with Dr.
Yeah.
Tovah, or anyone.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. And I think we have a couple other topics we could meet maybe next month or in the fall and talk a little bit more about. I mean, there's so many branches to this tree. We could take every one of your methods, one of your steps, and talk more about it and understand why feelings matter and what does love have to do with it, and why it's important to be flexible in your pelvis, and how important sexuality is to all of us, and how we abuse it or misuse it, and how it hurts us and how it helps us. And so it's a very important topic. In all the 3.5 years, this March it'll be 4 years I've been here with Rose, we've not talked about this topic, and it's so very important. The first woman we had on our broadcast, an amazing woman, she's a coach now also. She had this unbelievable, intense, arousal in her sexual parts that were painful. It was like unbelievable. It's another kind of pelvic issue. I can't imagine how something so beautifully sensitive could turn into a horror. And I think that's also what happens to men. It's happening to men sometimes in that painful area. But she had no idea, and there was not sexual abuse, so sometimes there is. She had no idea that there was a mind-body component. And she decided to, like, after 4 surgeries, many surgeries, different things going on, she was a math teacher. She decided, her daughter said, go do some meditation. She was like, what the heck, And she lied down in this meditative place with this therapist or hypnotherapy or whatever she did. And she felt no pain for the first time, no high sensation. And it blew her mind, And so there's tons of stories like this that I've been come across with the women, but I'm so happy. And maybe you want to come back and bring a gentleman, and a sensitive soul to the show, and we can talk about it and attract more people to come into this very special studio where it's safe and talk about it. I mean, we're all human. We all feel, like I always say, we fart and burp like anybody else, and I think it's the authenticity of this conversation with you is close to my heart, because I might embarrass people because I'm a little bit straight like that. I'm a little bit like, I get right to the point. And but I appreciate it because it's, to me, the bottom line, and everybody can relate to it. And I think the way we've presented it today was in a very safe place, and I'm just in awe in my life to meet you and to sit here with you. And maybe you just want to say a few more words about what you want to leave with our listeners, and some words of hope and some.
Definitely, for sure. I am very thankful for you, Dr. Tovah, for this conversation and for being so persistent, consistent week after week for years. That's incredible. That's really a force of light right here. I will also say that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Many of you who are watching this already see it, even if it's faint, even if it's far away. Things do get better. And I just needed to hear that. People ask me all the time, it's like, what, are you actually better? Like, is it okay? I'm like, no, like I exercise, I lift weights, I have amazing sex now. Like I don't have these issues. I just live life. It's incredibly amazing. Like I also had very restrictive diet for a while and now I can eat things again. I'm just so grateful. So things do get better. They do change. And don't give up on yourself. There is help. There is hope. There is a way. There is a path. And if you ever are at the end of your rope, what do? Go into silence, step away from everything, and create space. And the next step will come to you.
Yeah. You just said the word patience and trust and belief. And I just want to add that your body is not punishing you.
That's right.
Bodies does not punish you. The body is constantly striving to take care of you. That is the paradox. You know, like Alan Gordon will say that pain means something's wrong. Pain means danger. But this kind of pain we're talking about and these kind of autoimmune symptoms are not about danger. They're about protection. And I think that's why we put our scientist hat on and we're like, oh, that's what my fight and flight mechanism is doing that. And then I've trained it because I've become a, so I'm really happy to put this into perspective of neuroplasticity. And I definitely want to meet again. And I would love to also stay in touch. And if anybody wants to contact Michael through me, they know that I'm always available. This is sort of like TMS on call. We're here for you 24/7. Thank God to virtual and Facebook and WhatsApp. So Michael, we will meet again.
Thank you for
sure.
that invitation and for today. It was an amazing conversation. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. God bless to everyone out there and have a wonderful rest of the day. All the best. Okay, we're going to go off in a minute.